Yes.
All right, well, before we begin our Midrash, let's remember to thank Adonai because of what he's done for us with this food. So we've eaten and we are satisfied. So the scripture says, "So eat and be satisfied, and you'll bless Adonai your God for the good land he has given you." Let's do that. Abba, we have eaten and we're satisfied. And we thank you for the land. It's in Yeshua's name. Amen. All right. So with regard to our scriptures that we read today was from Torah portion Bemidbar, which corresponds to the first several chapters of the book of Bemidbar or Numbers. This is what we read in the Aliyot for that, and this was the first verse where it says the word Bemidbar, and as we discussed, it could be translated as in the wilderness or in the desert. This was one English version from the JPS.
Dessert.
Well, I don't think it's desert in that sense. It says in the wilderness of Sinai, and here's how Art Scroll. Yes.
Got one question.
Yes.
So, where would they be at this point? Because it's the first day of the second month. So, first day of the second month means they've already left Egypt. So, my assumption is they've already crossed the Gulf of Aqaba, the Red Sea there.
Mm-hmm.
Are they in the wilderness of Shur? Are they at the mountain at this point?
It says in the wilderness of Mount Sinai.
Yeah. So there
So they are near Mount Sinai. They are not at Mount Sinai yet.
Well, considering they already have the tent of meeting at this point, wouldn't this be after Sinai and everything was built? Because that wasn't built until after Sinai when they were given instructions on how to build.
Well, looking at the timeline, though, I mean, is that they had already crossed over. They were not. They had witnessed the destruction of the Egyptians by this point. And it is
It says in the tent of meeting.
Yeah.
They didn't have the tent of meeting when they left Egypt. They didn't have that until after it was built, after Sinai.
No, not true.
This is in the first year of their leaving. It's not the second. It's not in the second year. It's in the first year, in the first of the second month, meaning that it is really only a couple of weeks, I think, after they had left Egypt. Because if they left Egypt on the 15th day or the 16th day of the first month, this is the first of the second month,
Which
the
means
second
they
month
would have
after the Exodus.
already crossed the Red Sea. No,
What his question is, though, is really on the timeline of when the tent of meeting was available to be in, so to speak.
well, like Zach said, it's in the wilderness of Mount Sinai. So it took them, because I want to say it took them 7 weeks to get to Mount Sinai. Is that right? Because when they received the Torah, it was 7 weeks later, the 50th day. So, okay. So
when was the tent built? Because I thought the instructions for that didn't came down off the mountain of Sinai.
don't know.
Because there
Well,
wasn't
Is it the
The-
tenth of meeting, or is it?
It says in the
18th
tent of meeting. It says in the tent of meeting. And the tent of meeting was what that, I mean,
Maybe they had another chance for a meeting,
Yeah, hard to say.
to meet in, for the leaders to meet in.
Because remember, when,
there wasn't a priest yet.
when you look,
That wasn't determined until Sinai.
Unless this is in the beginning of the second year.
Right. If this is the beginning of the second year, that's a whole different thing.
that's what I'm saying. I misspoke a minute ago. This is the second year.
Okay,
Okay,
Or
so
it
this
says
is
it the-
after Sinai.
It is,
well,
it is a year after the giving of the Torah.
right, but they stated that in the Mount Sinai region for how many years?
Well, I'm saying that, when was the Torah given?
Shavuot.
And when is
50th day.
Shavuot?
It was the 50th day after Pesach. 7
Well,
Sabbaths, and then,
not necessarily after Pesach, but after, at least after the first fruits, or it is roughly 50 days after Pesach.
right.
It was either the fifth or every year it's either the fifth or the sixth day if you do it by a lunar count. It's the sixth day on the fixed calendar, but sixth day of the second month. So this is almost a year to the day after the giving of the Torah. So it's a year later, and that's what
Well,
is
if it's the first day of the second month
of the second year.
of the second year, they've only had one Shavuot. The second one's up and coming.
Right, but I'm saying that it would be only a few days away from the date we're here. We're almost at shop. This is,
Within 2 or 3 weeks.
this is about, if you look at it in terms of today,
Yeah.
this takes place, well, if it's, now, you may not have been here, but, I mean, just in terms of when, during announcements or some other time, but the moon was sighted tonight in Israel.
Okay,
And it would be really, it's in terms of when this is really it's the third month, I guess, to be the case. So we're about a month behind in terms of where we are right now, coming on to, if you will, the 50th day of that. So I'm wrong. They're not almost at Shavuot here. They're about a month ahead of Shavuot. They're like 2 weeks after the second Passover in the land, or in the wilderness.
is Nisan.
Right.
Okay, the second month is when basically Shavuot is going to
No,
happen.
No, it can't be. Because Pesach is the middle of the first month. So it's got to be 50 days after that, roughly. So it's
Middle of Nisan.
Yeah.
Not the beginning of Nisan.
So on the fixed calendar, it's always on the sixth day of the third month. So that tells you that,
Well, it depends when whether or not first fruits falls on the Sabbath or not, before the Sabbath. See, I think I believe a little differently with you on that, because I believe the weekly Sabbaths are the ones that are referring.
okay,
But either
doesn't,
way,
for this calculation, doesn't matter.
right.
It's
I'm just trying.
the reason I'm saying it's the third month that Shavuot is. It's no matter what calendar you're on, it's going to be the third month. It
Correct.
can't be the second month.
Okay,
So this is
I'm thinking.
this is in the about 2 weeks after the Omer count was going in that cycle.
I
of the second
agree.
year.
I agree. I see where I was looking. So this is the second month.
First day of the second month.
So you're saying Shavuot has not happened yet, right? This one,
The second Shavuot is not.
This should have
right?
been about-
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
approximately 14 days since Thousand Raven.
Mhm.
Yes.
So how many mitzvot are in this Torah portion, according to the traditional count? I'm not going to show you a slide because I don't have I just have the one slide that gives the answer.
Okay.
It's somewhere between 0 and 66.
65.
Which card is it on?
6.
The answer to that question is it's not on that card. Because it's not an answer between 1 and 30. That's what I know.
65.
65 is an answer.
I said 6.
6 is an answer. Folks, according to the traditional count, there ain't one.
Woohoo!
Nada.
Big zero.
No, 0 is a number, I guess, right?
Who goes up first?
What did he say?
Who goes up first?
What's on second?
Who's on first?
Uncle JD's answer is 0, so he got it right.
Yeah, but what letter was it? A, B, C, or D?
There wasn't a
It would've
letter.
been
It was only
B.
in
Always
Hebrew.
B.
No, it's usually C.
When in doubt.
But if you know, guess the answer. Don't say when in doubt. Right? All right, so we'll see. All right, so our verse 2 of our portion is lift the heads. Hang on a second. I have a call from Cece. Hello, Cece. She might have pocket dialed me. But
Did you just hang up on her?
I did.
He hung up.
But for the record, for everyone here, I did answer when she called, even though she wasn't really listening to anything.
How do we know she didn't hang up on you first?
Because it didn't hang up.
You sure?
I don't know.
He hung up.
I could hear a car noise in the background.
There you go.
Calling again. Let's see. Hello, are you there? I hear something's whining loud. What is it? Plug it back in and turn it on.
So how have you been this week?
I don't know. Afraid to look.
You might be crazy.
Angie,
No?
Okay.
have they moved a lot anymore?
Mhm.
Or just that once?
So there may have been a power outage because the
Mhm.
there's a call about the
So for now, I'm here.
No, I mean, have you been to a lot?
the ups
Have
was
you been to a lot?
was going off.
No.
Oh, the ups was going on?
What they send you over there for? You?
Just to close it, just to get the person over there.
It was just on that side of town?
So the ups was down.
Probably just trying to understand, so I didn't think someone called today.
I'm on a roll today.
No,
Yeah.
Doesn't make me understand. It's not busy. But no. I'm
All right,
very
so
excited.
our text from Lift the Heads, Se'u, et Rosh, is to elevate the heads. The head, singular. It's plural of elevate, but the word head, Rosh, is, as you see in the text there, is singular. It's in the top, it's Se'u et Rosh. The word for Rosh is head of all the congregation of Bnei Israel. And so, and that's the interlinear kind of version. The Hebrew text, the English rather, this is from Art Scroll, reads, take a census of the entire assembly of the children of Israel according to their families, according to the father's household, by number of the names, every male according to the head count. So why take a census? Why are they taking a census? What's the purpose of that census?
Military?
It seems to be military based because
Yeah,
20 years
because it
old,
was
just
just-
bear arms.
Those who can carry arms.
20 years and up.
I think it's also,
Those who can carry on.
look at the continuing reading in verses 3 and 4 of chapter 1. It kind of leads you to see it as a for tribal inheritance, I think is a big part of it as well. because how much land you get is going to be determined in part by the amount of people in the tribe. And when talking about inheritance, at least at this time, and I think it's biblical to say this, but this is what the traditional understanding by the rabbis is that certainly at that time, it is not the same in terms of how it's traditionally held today, but at that time, a person's tribal inheritance is solely patrilineal. In other words, only through the father. A Jew with a father from the tribe of Judah and a mother from the tribe of Asher belongs to tribe of Judah, not Asher. So in modern times, that has somewhat been modified in terms of how when it's not really the tribal inheritance part, because in modern times it hasn't really been an issue because why? Well, they weren't able to stay in the land because they got thrown out of the land, so there was no inheritance of tribes that was there. And the modern formulation of being Jewish comes from your mother's side of the family, really dates from exile times or times when Israel wasn't really in charge of themselves, and that for example, a Jewish woman who was raped by a Roman soldier wouldn't be a Roman because it'd be raised by the mother, and therefore would be the mother is where the inheritance comes from. That's where it came from. Yeah, basically, a time period when Jewish women were raped, if you will. And that's kind of looking back at that historically. That's happened a number of times. I mean, there's not counting the time period of 70 and 135 in the Middle Ages. Jerusalem itself was besieged 19 times between the 600s and the 1300s, and so all that tradition certainly comes from either before the 600s, but certainly by the time of the Middle Ages, where that idea of Jewish women not being able to be safe and secure anymore because of invading tribes.
Well, I also thought that the okay, you're saying two different tribes, but usually they stayed in the same tribe.
It's not necessarily the case.
I thought that Benjamin was the only one that they're like, you can't have any of our women, go somewhere else.
Well,
That was at a certain period.
the only issue would be if the women were to be or the sole inheritors
We're giving
of
an
land.
example of that.
Yeah, there is an example of that. If they weren't, because if they were the inheritors of their father's land, then that land can't go outside of the tribe. So they would have to marry within the tribe in order to keep the land in the tribal ownership of Judah or whoever tribe the women were from.
Is that supposed to return again to that in the future?
In terms of how it's going to be in the next temple period when it's active
Yeah,
operational.
whenever in the future is it going to be given back to the families or the certain tribes, each parcel of land?
I haven't seen anything in terms of formulation of how that part's going to work. I mean, really, what's published at least is just talking about the restarting of the temple service, but not necessarily temple government, if you will. So I don't know, how that would play out.
Though, that their boundaries and their inheritances would be established again, though. That would,
Could be.
at least in
Did you hear?
I didn't.
Didn't Ezekiel? I'm sorry, do you mind? Didn't Ezekiel prophesy somewhere that those family boundaries would be reestablished?
I can't recall.
I think it's Ezekiel 40.
I mean,
Like
that
44 on to
that does
the-
fit within the last 8 chapters or so of Ezekiel,
Yeah.
40 to 48, 8, 9 chapters ago. So
But it seems to go with the development, though, of
the temple that he sees.
Mhm.
And if that whole, his entire vision seems to be geared towards that. It doesn't sound like, well, when I've read it, it never sounds like something that humans take on themselves to do. It sounds like it's something that Yeshua would do. But that's just my opinion.
And this would probably be all the land that was promised to Israel.
Which would go beyond what is normally
Right.
written on maps of Israel, because it would be from, if you will, wadi to wadi, so to speak, from wadi of Egypt to the river Euphrates.
That's a serious parcel of land there.
So what
And a bit further for Reuben, Gad, Manasseh, and I forget the other one.
Well, they were outside. They're kind of on the other side of the Jordan River, but this is, and that was there was two promises: one of Canaan land, and one of the larger promise of Wadi of Egypt to Euphrates, which the tribal boundaries you see written on maps, historical maps of it, doesn't really only covers, if you will, the dimensions listed for Canaan, not for others. So how that would track for going into into the Euphrates,
referred to as greater
the
Israel.
greater Israel. Yeah, thank you. Is I haven't seen that even historically in terms of when David, well, really when Shlomo and Solomon's empire really stretched pretty much close to that. I've not seen any listing of tribal ownership of anywhere outside of Canaan land. So
the counting here, you're saying, is more for tribal land.
well, military is certainly a part of it, but I think that military is only a part of it, because I think that ultimately it's looking at, okay, we're thinking about this. This is presupposing Israel is going from here into the land, right? It's not going to. This is not saying we're going to wait. We're going to go around the mountain for 40 more years before we go to the land, because they're getting ready to go into the land now, as they should have gone into the land. If they followed, the wise counsel of Joshua.
So they would have to have that ironed out when they went into the land.
Right. They need to know how many people we have so we can divide the land in accordance with that.
So it's a dual, that and military.
Right. You have to know.
Otherwise, it would. I mean, the land part isn't mentioned in that, why they're doing it.
Right.
But it does specify fit to bear arms.
Mhm.
Seems like Joseph is getting a double portion now.
Well, possibly, because they had a lower number of people in their tribes, if I remember right. That comparatively, they're relatively weaker on their side. Now, here's a question. It's not really. I don't really have a slide on it, but who wasn't counted with the military side of it? It was the Levites, right? The tribe of Levi was not counted there.
Mhm.
So I haven't really heard a justification for this. I know that in Israel today, there's today is not say today's date, but in modern times, if you will, there's kind of a controversy between the people and the ultra orthodox who have an exemption from serving in the army, or want to keep that exemption from serving in the military. Is it because are they claiming the same status as Levi as to be?
Well, if they're not, they don't have a leg to stand on, in my opinion.
Well, a version of it might be something like this. Within traditional Judaism, the idea of studying something is as if you're doing it. I don't necessarily think that's really true, but that is a concept, because right now, reading about, like, for example, the Yom Kippur offering isn't the same as doing it, but it's sometimes just talked about as reading or studying how it was done is getting credit for doing it. So if they're studying about the how a Levite is to operate, so it would be as if they were doing it. Now, there you can tell, DNA wise, there's a difference between the J1 and J2 markers, Cohen's versus non-Cohen's, so to speak. So some could fall into that category, although most are likely not directly descended from Cohen's. But that idea is, we don't know for sure, and no one really knows for sure because, or few people know for sure. I mean, I've seen some lineages that at least trace some people back to the 1600s or so, if not earlier. So
It doesn't seem that the Levites, I don't really see that would mean they'd be exempted from military service, because if you think about it, Phineas seemed to take on a role of priest that was definitely very military minded through through Joshua, Judges. We see that he got around a lot as a priest.
I think there was the term warrior priest.
yeah,
also.
I've seen that as listing him as a priest for war.
Mhm.
But
And-
that is certainly the exception, not the rule, because you don't see anybody else doing that. So he was either gifted at that, or some otherwise was motivated to do it. But they weren't. But in the survey of military age males, so to speak, they were not listed there. They're listed separately because of that. Because they're going to be under different rulership in terms of land ownership, in my view. It's not just the military, but land ownership, because they're not going to be owning any land, and so they're not counted among the same group. But it could be potentially. What I was getting at was in terms of the number of the number of Levites and Kohanim that are mixed within the overall group of Israelites, of modern Jews in Israel. That they could be, many of those could be at some point in time with intermarriage and everything related to the priesthood, whether or not their last name is Cohen or not. So there may be something to stand on, but it's caused, as you probably have read, quite a bit of consternation, and if you will, this unity because of that, in the sense of people think that, the common people typically think that the ultra-Orthodox are hiding behind Torah study as a way to get out of actual doing actual work.
I can kind of see their point, because back when that was established, there was a temple, or not a temple, but there was service,
They had a JOB.
holy service to be
Yeah.
done. They had a job to do.
Right.
Okay, and they would concentrate on that. Now they're trying to say, oh, we're of that same group, but we don't have nothing to take care of, so the study is what we're taking care of.
Well, isn't it true that a lot of the ultra-Orthodox are resistant to the idea of bringing back the third temple? I thought I heard somewhere that was not, they weren't real, because they aren't typically Zionists. They're kind of
Right.
looking for
There
the Messiah
are-
to come do all that for them. They're not really interested in that. I'm sorry, I know this really isn't material to the discussion that we're having.
Not directly, but indirectly, it is. What's going on with that typically is understood that, well, because Israel was founded as a secular nation, that it's not really real Israel.
Men
And-
created it instead of God.
Yeah. And so as a
Kind of
result,
like a reverse replacement theology, sort of.
I guess you could say that. It's kind of it goes back to Rambam's question about,
It's Israel, but it's not real Israel.
oh, I say, yeah. It's not really, it's occupying land, but not, if you don't have a functioning temple and temple service, it's as if Israel still is in exile. But, and I don't think you can argue against that, honestly, but what their point is kind of goes back to a Middle Ages question about whether or not the third temple will be built by Messiah when he comes, or should we build a temple and then that will bring Messiah to come? And I think their view is that neither one of those has happened yet, so therefore it is not prophesied, and so therefore it's not really real Israel. That may not be the term that they would use, not real Israel, but they view it, as a established as a secular and even a socialist kind of government at the time, and that would be against what they want to do. So they're, because of not living under strict Orthodox rules, that means that therefore they're an apostate state, so to speak. And Tel Aviv is a good example of that problem.
So I see strife between them and Yeshua when he does come back as to who rules.
And not changed from 2,000 years ago, right? So-
Except when he shows back up, he's going to have something to say about it.
Yeah, it'll be a bit.
And
different than
every
last
knee
time.
shall bow.
Yeah.
When out of his mouth proceeds a double-edged sword. Yeah,
Comes
I don't
notice-
think they're going to be able to speak back too much.
Well, here's where the tribes are organized. On one side, the east of the tabernacle, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun.
Reuben
Reuben,
slide for that,
for what?
the way they're organized. Like what you're talking about.
I don't think I have
Visually.
in this slide deck. I don't have a visual for that. I do have one. I want to say that when they're moving across, when they actually move out,
I remember this.
I have that, but it's not in this, it's not in the slide deck. But the interesting part of this is the center part. The tribe of Levi is on all sides of,
Surrounded.
they're surrounding the tabernacle.
I've seen it, one it is before, the one that animates.
Has both audio and video marching sounds and such, and shofar sounds.
It was kind of amazing.
Because there's a, yes, thank you. Because there's a, I did that honestly as a counter apologetic sort of thing, because there is a teaching that said that this organization is like a big giant cross walking across the desert, which I was thinking to myself,
No, it isn't. Big long line.
it's not a column. That is not how anybody's ever marched. They just don't. That's not how it works. I had to laugh, and so I had to do a slide on it. Anyway, so those were the folks around there. And as west of the tabernacle was Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin.
So God had them camp around
Yeah, they
to
can't.
keep as a mercy, so that the other tribes wouldn't wander in there and get killed.
Yeah, they were the Levites were guardians to make sure that
That was a mercy.
Yeah.
move on God's part, not a, you're not good enough to be in here type thing.
no, it wasn't that. I mean, because even within Levi, some of Levi was not supposed to be there even to see the holy articles. But it was just like anything else, and it is a standard comment. But everything he says, every command that seems like it's blocking some action, it's for our own protection, for our own good.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's very true. And okay, so in next several slides are the banners or ensigns or stones. It's based on the text of the scriptures don't tell us exactly what they look like. This is based on the commentary in Numbers Rabbah. Each flag was of a different color, for every flag, and the corresponding prince had its own banner and correspond to the color of the stone, according to what Midrash Rabbah says. And so the first one is Reuben, and the stone was ruby. The color of the flag was ruby red, and embroidered with Judaim, or mandrakes.
Mandrakes?
Mandrakes.
Oh.
Not mandrakes.
Okay. It's my hearing, sorry.
Next up is Shimon, topaz. Color of the flag was green, a topaz color. The town of Shechem was embroidered on it. And here's a stamp there that shows that, although of course the stamp was not made at the time. But that is the stamp for Shimon.
Postal Service was around that time.
Yep. The old ancient postal service, of course, ran by Levites. And here's Levi. Emerald. A third white, black, and red.
Huh?
Embroidered with Urim and Tumim. The white, black, and red on the bottom shows that came from, actually, it was from Britam.org. There's Urim and Tumim there. The white color is Urim, and the other one is Tumim. Yehuda, the tribe of Judah, carbuncle, which is listed here as garnet. Color of the flag was something like the heavens. Embroidered on it was a lion.
You know, the heavens were brown. I thought they were Tefillah blue.
Yeah. The stone, I don't think matches. In this case, you'd say that the heavens would be, Shemayim would be of the color of Tefillah. I would agree with that. This doesn't really show the flag itself. It shows the lion on the stamp. The stamp probably could be better colored versus, a blue color instead of, because the stamp doesn't show us either garnet or, or blue color, kind of a brown color. I guess it could be the color of the heavens over Los Angeles in the 1970s.
It might fit.
Issachar, sapphire. The color of the flag was black like antimony, and embroidered on it was the sun and the moon. In allusion to the text from First Chronicles, it says, "And of the children of Issachar, men that had understanding of the times." According to tradition, they're the tribe that was good at interpreting or adding a month or in before or after Passover, or before or after Sukkot in the seventh month in some ancient times. That was Issachar.
So that's a green sky there. That's it.
Yeah.
They got to work in their colors.
Well, maybe a black stamp would not go very well. Zebulon was a diamond, and the color of the flag was white with a ship embroidered on it. In allusion to the text, Zebulon shall dwell at the shore of the sea, from Bereshit 49:13. So, therefore, Zebulon is very romantic because of the diamond, right?
Or very hard.
Headed.
Very good at scratching.
Dan, or Don, judge, was jacinth. Hebrew word there is Lashem. Color of his flag was similar to sapphire. Embroidered on it was a serpent. Allusion to text, Dan shall be a serpent in the way. So in this case, it looks like they have the flag color as more of a green color versus a sapphire color. So several of the stamps seem to be green.
I don't know who put that together, but they have color problems.
That looks like blue to me.
Yeah.
It's greenish, bluish, maybe. Maybe it's the color of the color.
Blue for the sea.
Yeah, it's actually blue.
Maybe it's
Teal?
I like
Yeah,
that, Zach. I think it's kind of teal color.
Teal,
Or aqua.
no, teal. Like period.
Period.
Oh, not like,
Well, the tribe of Gad or God here is was an agate stone. Color of his flag was neither white nor black, but a blend of black and white, which is not purple really, but that's the color of the staff. It was allusion to the text, God, a troop shall troop upon him.
So black and white make gray.
Yes.
Yeah, they definitely got issues.
Well, it just seems like the stamp color is not necessarily indicative.
Yeah.
The color of the stamp is different. The things on the stamp are kind of indicative of what was possibly on the banner based on that text from Numbers Rabbah. But the color of the stamp is not necessarily the same
They
as
should
should have been.
Yeah, they should have been.
they lost the opportunity there, didn't they?
They did.
so what was supposed, oh, okay.
Naphtali was an amethyst, and the color of his flag was like clarified wine of a not very deep red. It was embroidered on a hind, in allusion to the text Naphtali is a hind let loose. So again, it's not a clarified wine color there.
No,
It's
At
more of
least
a
not-
pink.
Plus
Well-
mead, it's mead.
Yeah, but mead isn't wine.
Unless it was made with white grapes.
But again, this is supposed to be clarified wine of a not very deep red.
so that makes it golden gray? Just saying.
Seems like this is like these a lot
It's
of
made from
actors.
Thompson Seedless. Obviously. Next up is Asher. Asher was of beryl, and the color of his flag was like the precious stone which women adorn themselves.
So what's a barrel?
Plain whiskey
I
comes
think it's blue.
Ugh.
Well, it looks like on the slide there's a number of beryl variations. Those are all different variations of beryl.
So Asher didn't have a clue what he was.
So an olive tree is embroidered on it. Allusion to the text is for Asher's bread shall be fat. Fat in this sense could be powerful in that sense, but
plentiful.
Huh?
Plentiful.
plentiful
Plentiful.
could be. I think it's more on not the plentifulness of it, but it's more about the quality versus the quantity. I think I would say that'd be a way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But the word there, you might recognize, Shemana is the word there used for the word fat there. It is related to, shemen is the word for fat, or sometimes as oil in Hebrew. And it's a kind of fat that is typically understood to be the fat you can eat on meat. In other words, it's edible fat, not inedible fat. So shuman is how that's rendered. This word shemana is from that same root word as shemen.
So he isn't going hungry.
No. And of course, is the that olive tree there is the symbol for the
Well,
Olives?
it's the Golani Brigade.
The what?
The Golani
Golani
Brigade of the IDF. That's why it says Golani at the bottom there. Yosef is next. Onyx. Color of his flag was jet black, unlike the stamp.
so there were two of them that were black.
Seems like it. There's because what's that? There's another one that was black too. Was that enough? I don't remember that's one was. But one of them was black. Yeah.
So both Ephraim and Manasseh under the Joseph code?
Whoever's was
Yes.
the sapphire, I believe, had a black flag.
Well, others talk about, now, here's the next flag is, next thing I show, it doesn't quite match this, in the sense that Joseph was onyx, the color of his flag was jet black. But according to the idea also is that Ephraim was a bullock, which applies to Joshua came from Ephraim. So this, in my view, this banner that was made here that says Ephraim on it has a bullock, but the flag isn't quite right. It's the flag. I mean, the coloring is not the same as the previous slide. If that makes sense. It has a bullock on it, yes, but it's not. The flag isn't the color of onyx.
The bull is on one.
Hmm?
The bull is on
The
one.
bull is on one. The other is a Texas Longhorn, I think. That's right.
Yeah, that would definitely go down that road. Yep.
And so the next one is supposed to be of Manasseh, embroidered on a wild ox. The horns were the horns of a wild ox. It would make sense to me that both of them would have an ox on it. I'm not sure where the pyramid comes into this.
Egypt.
Right, but being born in Egypt, I guess, would be a way of doing it. But both the sons were born in Egypt. Why wouldn't Ephraim have it also?
Maybe he's in there.
It's just a bit unclear in terms of the half tribes and what their flags might have looked like.
Yeah.
Next up is Benjamin, the last one of the tribes. Jasper, color of his flag was a combination of all 12 colors. Embroidered on it was a wolf. Allusion to the fact that Benjamin is a wolf, ravenous wolf.
So his was the combination of all 12 colors. That probably would have came out black, don't you think?
No, gray.
Gray.
A mix of all colors is
Gray.
is called a lively gray. Took art class.
Unless they're trying to imply discreetly that it was a rainbow-colored flag, but I don't think any of us would want it to be a rainbow-colored flag.
Well,
I'm just saying.
I'm with you on that one.
it kind of, I'm thinking about when you mix all the things together, it comes out in kind of a
Hodgepodge?
hodgepodge color. It could be gray in that sense, in the color sense. I'm thinking of a grog bowl at a dining out. You dump everything
That
in
could be
it.
dangerous.
Yeah, it's not, you don't just dump wine in it typically. There's also sand and things like that. But the bottom line is it could be more pinkish in that sense because the other colors you're going to put
True.
in could be
Depending on how much
wine you have in there. Yeah.
Too much Mad Dog.
So, any questions or additional thoughts on the colors that we've looked at, or the banners rather?
What color was Reuben?
Wasn't it black?
I thought it was.
Reuben.
Was that the other one that was black?
Was the first one.
I'll do some paging back. It was the first one.
Oh, then it wasn't black.
Oh, you're right, it was red, I think.
Reuben was red.
Yeah.
Ruby. That's right.
So
Reuben,
Ruby,
Ruby.
Ruby, Topaz, Emerald, Carbuncle, Issachar, Sapphire. Oh, wait, and the flag was black like antimony. One of this
Yep.
Issachar was.
It's a. Seems like more of a flat black.
So do we know how those were placed, arranged on the vest of the high priest?
How the stones were arranged
On the ephod.
with the orders.
On the ephod?
There are depictions of it. I don't know if we can
There's
say.
nothing in scripture that says, but this.
It says what the stones were. I don't know that it says the order in there. There may be something in there that alludes to that. Certainly in tradition you can find that. I don't know that the text itself says the order of the stones across the breastplate.
Okay, all 12 tribes, their gems are gonna be what's the temple, what the New Jerusalem's gonna be made of. But somebody has actually found the specific reason those stones were, God chose those particular stones is because they're under a very
pure
light, pure white light.
What?
If you look at them at a microscopic level and you see them through, and you shoot like pure white light at them, you get these amazing colors, whereas you get these amazing patterns, whereas you don't get those with certain other kinds of gems. That most people would like.
Say again?
Isotopic.
Is that, that's the,
That's the kind that does shine pretty colors and bright lights. Diamonds are not isotopic.
The diamonds on the list.
Yeah, that was on the list.
I tried, what thing are you talking about? Totally different. I'm sorry. I once heard that diamonds respond to like black lights. Have you heard that? They said that different, some diamonds respond to black lights by glowing in different colors. And among gemologists of all things, it's their theory that that may have been what the Urim and the Thummim were diamonds that were responsive to various forms of light. But they said some diamonds will glow like blue, some will glow pink or yellow. But they say it's a fun trick to try. Like if you have one of those black lights, you can shine it on a diamond ring and see if it fluoresces or not.
I think
Or if
that's
it's
also
cubic
one of the tests they did.
or if it's cubic zirconia.
To
Yeah,
try to
cubic
determine
zirconia
if it
has
was
been
lab
lab.
grown or not.
You got me, I think. Lab rats?
Lab grown diamonds,
I don't,
because you can lab grow a diamond.
I don't know if it's fluorescent or not.
That's what I said, I think that, the UV test is one of the things they actually try to use to determine if it was lab grown or not.
Oh, that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, weird totally uses diamonds.
Only for today's totally useless.
Next.
Next. Okay. So next is something we've talked about before, but this chapter is talking about a change in the priesthood. And this is taken from the book of Bemidbar, chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. And behold, I have taken from the Levi'im, from among the children of Israel, instead of every firstborn that opens the womb, among the children of Israel, and the Levi'im shall be mine, for the firstborn are mine. So, yes.
I know why the Levi are the firstborn, because Reuben slept with his dad's concubine, and the two under him attacked a village that was essentially helpless at the time. So Levi was the next in line.
Levi was one of the attackers. Levi was.
No, it mentioned two specifically that went out and attacked. It was the two under Reuben.
That would have been Levi and Simeon.
Yeah.
Judah was number 4.
I think Levi was among those that attacked the Shechem.
Yep. So when it talks about the firstborn, is it the firstborn male or the firstborn period?
Usually
Um,
it's male.
in this context, it's not really male or female. It's just talking about tribes. And the reason it's saying the reason why the Levi became the firstborn was because of their actions, right? They're the ones that took up the sword to smite the revelers, if you will, those who are
Hittites,
gone
was
astray.
it?
Say again?
The Hittites.
No, it was Israelites who had basically said, "Well, Moshe is gone. Let's build a golden calf."
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see.
And party.
The thing is Moshe was also Levi.
Right, but that wasn't the reason that the Levite, until that time,
Yeah.
it wasn't quite the same. There wasn't really, I mean, until a year ago from this time period, if you will,
Yeah.
from before this, that's when that event, that unfortunate event happened. But it was, the reasoning here is really that the firstborn of Israel was set apart. So at this point, it seems to me that at this short-lived point between the time of the firstborn of Egypt till the golden calf incident, the firstborn was to be, if you will, set apart to Yah as a firstborn priesthood, or if you will, a kingdom of priests. That was what the idea was then, and that's why the tie-in between this chapter and this particular passage and Revelation chapter 1, particularly the Aramaic text, that uses that phrase of the firstborn priesthood, or I'm sorry, not firstborn priesthood, but the kingdom of priests. And that's what I think is happening here. Now, the priesthood transformed to be the Levitical priesthood as a result of the golden calf. And I think that we have good evidence to see that there is a transition that could happen back to from the Levitical priesthood to the kingdom of priests. And kind of see that in this passage, or these passages rather. And I have the first Hikalut passage on the next slide, the first Revelation passage on the next slide, that talks about the king of priests from the Aramaic text, but that reads something like this. And from Yeshua HaMashiach, the witness, the faithful, the firstborn of the dead, and the prince of the kings of earth, who has loved us and released us from our sins by his blood, and made us a kingdom of priests to Elohim, Father, to whom be glory and power forever and ever. Amen. So, this is from the Aramaic Peshitta text. It's a similar idea from the Crawford Aramaic text, which is not quite the same as the Peshitta text, but it also uses that phrase, kingdom of Kohanim, kingdom of priests. And so we get to the missing 300. Get this next slide here on the screen again.
What do you mean the missing 300?
The missing 300. Okay. Let's go here. Okay, so the missing 300 is this. You count the number of males between Gershon, Kohat, and Merari. All the males a month old and older was 22,000 according to the text, 339. But when you add them up according to the listing of them, there's 22,300. Who are the missing 300?
You didn't think there was some rounding going on? Because in any of the listings, do you ever see like 30,428?
There was only once that I saw a number that was like that, and that was when they did this count. So,
22. The number given was 22,273. Pretty precise. What essentially these are now. This is what the missing 300 is thought to be the difference between the number of firstborn Israelites, because if in terms of the taking as firstborn, between the firstborn of the sons of Israel and the firstborn of Levi here, not firstborn, but number of Levites themselves. The firstborn of Israel was 22,300. No, I'm not reading it right.
22,273.
Yeah. Okay. So the the difference between 22,000 and 22,300 is said to be the difference between the priests or the Levites who are also firstborns. Because in place of the firstborns, Yah is taking Levi. But it is said to be that the 300 could not be included because they were they're also firstborn. So a firstborn Levite can't redeem a firstborn of the other tribe because they too were firstborns. So a firstborn can't be in place of another firstborn in that same sense. The key part, our sages subtracted Barakot answer that these 300 Levites were firstborns, and it was enough that they exempt themselves from redemption. And that's where there was a 5 shekel charge in case of that, which is, it says, equal to 20 gerahs. And so that Israel had to pay for the other 300, and so it added up to 1,365 shekels, according to chapter 3, verse 50. But this, in the same Torah portion, in the same reading, if you will, the same slide, there are dots over the Aharon and Aaron. And I don't know, I didn't really do a search of Qumran in this case, but it always seemed likely that Qumran texts are always been worm-eaten at the place where there are now dots over them. But there is commentary. It's sometimes unusual to have commentary on what the dots mean. In this case, there is commentary on those particular dots. Here's it's from the Talmud, so take it for that what it's worth. This is, why is the word Aaron dotted in the book of Numbers? Because Aaron, was not in that numbering of the Levites. And then it says in the text note, for all dottings of a word have the purpose of limiting and excluding something. He was not included because he would have been one of those firstborn of the tribe of Levi.
Why you say missing 300 when it was 273? There's 27 missing.
Well, because when you go back to
Those are two separate numbers, the 2,200 and then the 273.
In verse 43, the number of firstborn males registered among old and over of those who counted was 22,273. And that is what? Which number is the 22,273? It is the firstborn of Israel.
Not the firstborn of Levi.
Right. So the 22,300 on this slide is the number of those clans within those 22,300 a month old and over of the Levitical clans. But as 22,273 is the number of firstborn of Israel. And so the missing 300 is the text in chapter 339 says the number of Levites whom Moshe and Aaron counted by their clans, all the males a month old over was 22,000, period, not 20,300. So there's 300 that are not accounted for.
But they're counted in that 22,273.
2273 is not Levites. Those are the number of the firstborn.
That's what I'm saying. They're counted in that one.
No, they're not counted at all.
Yeah, they're not. They don't seem to be counted at all. They were firstborns, but they were not. They were firstborn, but I don't think they were counted among all of Israel in that sense. They were just basically redeemed. They were not actually counted in that number because they were firstborns. The text doesn't say why they weren't counted. That's what we're looking at now. It doesn't really give us and this is for sure what that is, but that would account for why the 300 weren't counted at that time. Because they would have been double counted, if you will. Now you couldn't put them in the 22,273, because if you did that, you have firstborns of Levi being redeemed by firstborn by Levi.
It's too much.
Well, it'll be
Math
understood.
just ain't adding up for me, sorry.
Okay.
It's not my time.
So, according to tradition, the question was noted by a Roman, Quintus perhaps, who questioned Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. In the detailed record of the numberings of the Levites, you find the total is 22,300, whereas in the sum total you only find 22,000. Where are the remaining 300? He replied to him, the remaining 300 were Levite firstborn, and a firstborn cannot cancel the holiness of a firstborn. So commentary for that. In other words, Aaron and Levi, or Aaron and 300 of the Levite already belong to Yah. They have already been redeemed, and so can't be double counted as a substitution for the firstborn of Israel. And that really is my last study note slide. What questions that came up in your studies or questions came up during our reading today?
Well, hold on a second. Let's get back to math. So the 300 were counted
okay.
in the 22,273 of the firstborn of Israel. Never
Okay,
mind that.
okay. I think I figured out what's going on. When they counted the Levites, they weren't counting just the firstborn. It was all of them. Every male of the Levites, a month and older.
And that's 22,300.
And that's 22,300. 300 of them were firstborns, and according to Torah, had already been taken. I mean, they were already not counted for, but had been sacrificed for. They'd already been claimed by God, and so couldn't be counted twice. So they were taken out of the 2,200. Those 300 who were already firstborns, they can't be because, like he was saying, the Levites were being taken instead of the firstborns of the rest of Israel. All of Levi was being taken instead of the firstborns of the land of Israel. But there's already supposed to be a sacrifice for the firstborn.
Okay.
And so the firstborn of Levi, that sacrifice had already been made.
Okay, we're done.
So, are there any other shehalot or questions?
No, I'm hurting too much.
Let's pray then. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, thank you for allowing us to midrash on your word. And we thank you for all your blessings. We ask you to give us safe drives home. In Yeshua's name we ask this. Amen.
We're doing Haggadah.
What time is it?
It is 2026.
We should probably go out and see if it's dark enough to see the moon.
Attitude.